When Jessica left her toddler in a scorching Florida car to go watch a movie, no one could have predicted how quickly a joyful morning would turn into a nightmare. It was a typical summer morning in Florida, with the sun rising early and already sending waves of heat across the quiet suburb. The streets were calm, dotted with the occasional jogger or car passing by, while birds flitted from tree to tree, oblivious to the human drama about to unfold. Inside a small, modest house, a mother hurried through her morning routine, glancing at the clock as if time were slipping away. Her toddler played quietly on the floor, surrounded by scattered toys, unaware of the day's danger. The mother's movements were brisk, efficient, but tinged with a sense of urgency, as though she had somewhere important to be. The air conditioning hummed faintly, but the heat outside pressed against the windows like a warning that went unnoticed. Neighbors carried on with their own routines, watering lawns, checking mail, and exchanging brief greetings. No one suspected that a life-altering choice was quietly being made just a few doors down. From the outside, the mother appeared ordinary, attentive, and cheerful, a woman simply going about her day. She kissed her child on the forehead, lifted the toddler into the car seat, and fastened the straps with practiced precision. The sound of the car door closing echoed in the driveway, a routine noise that blended seamlessly into the neighborhood's rhythm. Yet, the small click of the seatbelt would become the first note in a story that would shake the community. As she started the engine, the heat inside the vehicle began to build almost imperceptibly. The sun climbed higher, trapping the air inside the car and turning it into a sealed oven. The toddler wriggled slightly, trying to escape the confines of the seat, but the mother's attention was elsewhere, focused on the day ahead. She drove away without a second thought, leaving behind a home that would soon be empty of laughter and a neighborhood that would soon be questioning everything they thought they knew. Cameras mounted on nearby houses captured the routine scene, a mother and child leaving for an ordinary outing, but these images would later become evidence in a case that no one could have anticipated. By the time she reached her destination, the toddler was already beginning to suffer from the rising temperature. Minutes that seemed insignificant to her were becoming a life or death countdown for the child strapped helplessly in the back seat. What started as a normal morning, a simple drive to the movies, would soon spiral into a nightmare that left everyone asking how a momentary choice could lead to such irreversible tragedy. The quiet suburb, the smiling mother, and the unsuspecting child were all part of a story that would haunt the community for months to come. The drive to the movie theater seemed ordinary at first, just another errand on a hot Florida morning. The mother's attention was on the road, adjusting the radio and thinking about the film she planned to watch, while her toddler sat strapped in the back seat, unaware of the danger growing around them. The sun beat down mercilessly, and the car's interior quickly became a furnace. Even with the windows slightly cracked, the temperature inside rose at an alarming rate, far faster than most adults could realize. With each passing minute, the toddler's small body struggled to cope, and the air that should have been refreshing became suffocating. Passersby and other drivers moved around the car, oblivious to the silent emergency occurring within. A jogger paused for a moment at a crosswalk, noticing a small movement in the back seat, but dismissing it as normal. Squirming, the mother parked, thinking only of her quick trip, completely unaware of how dangerous the situation had become. She stepped out of the car, closing the door behind her, and walked toward the theater. What she saw as a short walk into a darkened lobby would soon be revealed as a deadly delay for the child left behind. Inside, the cool air of the theater offered relief, a stark contrast to the heat outside. Minutes stretched into an hour as the toddler remained trapped, struggling against the straps of the car seat, unable to open the doors or call for help. The neighborhood, still calm from the outside, held no hint of the crisis inside the parked vehicle. The sun moved across the sky, turning the asphalt into a radiating surface that intensified the sweltering heat, sealing the car in a slow, invisible danger. Eventually, a passerby noticed the small child through the car window and dialed emergency services. By the time authorities arrived, the toddler's condition was critical. Paramedics rushed to the scene, working frantically to stabilize the child, but the intensity of the heat had already taken its toll. Investigators would later piece together the timeline, revealing the dangerous length of time the toddler had been left alone. The mother's simple decision to enjoy a movie had catastrophic consequences, turning what should have been a normal outing into a tragedy. The streets that had seemed so ordinary now held the weight of shock and disbelief, as neighbors struggled to comprehend how quickly life could change in the heat of a Florida afternoon. News of the incident spread quickly, leaving the community in shock and disbelief. Neighbors who had waved and smiled at the mother just days earlier now whispered behind closed doors, trying to make sense of what had happened. Parents feared for their own children, wondering how something like this could occur so close to home. Local reporters arrived, capturing footage of the quiet streets and the theater parking lot, contrasting the ordinary surroundings with the extraordinary tragedy that had occurred. Social media erupted, with residents sharing news articles, videos, and their opinions, some filled with anger, others with sorrow, and a few trying to defend the mother's choices. The contrast between everyday life and sudden disaster weighed heavily on the minds of everyone involved. Authorities began a detailed investigation, piecing together the chain of events. They examined security footage from the theater, reviewed phone records, and spoke to witnesses who had noticed the toddler in the car. Each new detail revealed a clearer picture of the timeline, showing how quickly the heat inside the vehicle had risen to dangerous levels. Experts explained that even a short amount of time could be deadly, and the toddler's tiny body had been unable to cope with the rising temperatures. The community's shock deepened as the facts emerged. What many assumed would be a harmless mistake had turned into a preventable tragedy. Medical reports and emergency response notes painted an even grimmer picture. Paramedics described the frantic efforts to revive the toddler and stabilize the condition, emphasizing how rapidly heat affects young children. Every detail highlighted the dangers of leaving a child unattended in a vehicle, something that most people might underestimate until it happens. The media focused on these findings, broadcasting warnings and advice for parents, but the story also carried a human element that could not be ignored. Families mourned collectively, and neighbors grappled with feelings of guilt for not noticing sooner. As investigators delved deeper, the mother's personal life began to emerge as a subject of scrutiny. Details about her routines, her stresses, and her decisions in the days leading up to the incident were revealed, creating a complex picture that left the public struggling to reconcile empathy with outrage. The investigation raised important questions. How could such a preventable tragedy occur? Were there signs that could have been noticed earlier? The answers were as unsettling as the event itself, leaving a community forever changed and a story that would not be easily forgotten. As the investigation continued, startling details about the mother's past began to surface, shocking the community even further. Neighbors who once described her as quiet and unassuming now revealed glimpses of behavior that had gone unnoticed. Authorities discovered that she had faced prior incidents of questionable judgment, minor but concerning situations that hinted at a pattern of risky decision-making. While none of these events had previously resulted in serious consequences, they added weight to the ongoing investigation, painting a picture of a woman whose choices could have dangerous outcomes. Experts were brought in to assess the circumstances, explaining how stress, distraction, and poor judgment could combine to create a situation as severe as leaving a child in a sweltering vehicle. Financial pressures and personal struggles in the mother's life were examined, revealing a series of challenges that may have influenced her decision-making on that fateful day. However, authorities emphasized that no external pressure could justify leaving a toddler in a car during the intense Florida heat. The combination of human error and environmental danger had created a scenario that escalated faster than anyone could imagine. Medical and forensic reports offered chilling confirmation of the toddler's rapid deterioration. Every minute spent in the hot car caused irreversible damage, and investigators carefully reconstructed the timeline to show just how quickly the situation had turned deadly. Witness statements and security footage corroborated the timeline, demonstrating that the mother's absence, though brief to her, had far-reaching consequences. The community struggled to understand how a simple trip to the movies had transformed into a life-threatening ordeal, and feelings of anger and disbelief mingled with grief for the toddler. Public attention intensified as the media reported on the emerging details, highlighting not just the tragic event but the human story behind it. Legal analysts speculated on potential charges and consequences, while psychologists explained the factors that might lead a parent to make such a devastating mistake. The mother's reputation crumbled as she became the center of scrutiny, with neighbors and strangers alike questioning her choices and reflecting on the fragile balance between daily routine and catastrophic error. The case became a cautionary tale, emphasizing the dangers of momentary lapses in judgment and the devastating impact they can have on the most vulnerable. Every revelation added layers to a story already steeped in tragedy. What began as a seemingly ordinary morning had evolved into a complex narrative of negligence, human frailty, and irreversible consequences. The community remained in shock, forever marked by an event that unfolded in minutes but would be remembered for a lifetime. The courtroom became the stage where the tragedy was laid bare for everyone to see. Families, neighbors, and community members packed the seats, their faces reflecting grief, anger, and disbelief. Evidence was presented meticulously, including security footage, emergency response reports, and the reconstructed timeline that revealed the devastating consequences of the mother's decision. Legal experts explained the charges, emphasizing the seriousness of leaving a child unattended in extreme heat. The tension in the room was palpable, each piece of evidence deepening the weight of the mother's actions and the irreversible outcome for the toddler. Witnesses spoke to the character and daily routines of the mother, attempting to provide context for the decisions she had made. Experts in child safety described in detail how quickly a child's body reacts to heat, making the timeline terrifyingly clear. Every detail underscored the fragility of life and the ease with which ordinary choices can turn deadly. As the trial unfolded, the public followed closely, with media coverage amplifying the emotional intensity and spreading awareness far beyond the local community. People across the state and country began to understand the gravity of leaving a child in a car, a cautionary tale that resonated deeply with parents everywhere. The mother's defense tried to explain the pressures and distractions that led to her actions, but the evidence of negligence was overwhelming. The jury examined the facts carefully, weighing intent against the irreversible consequences of a single moment. Outside the courtroom, community members debated, mourned, and reflected on their own responsibilities, realizing that tragedy could strike unexpectedly, even in the most familiar surroundings. The case became a symbol of accountability, a reminder that choices, no matter how brief, can have permanent repercussions. In the aftermath, the story sparked widespread discussion and action. Awareness campaigns about child safety and vehicles gained momentum, with organizations emphasizing the importance of vigilance, education, and preventive measures. Parents were urged to remain mindful of the dangers of hot cars, and tools such as car alarms, reminders, and public service announcements became more widely adopted. While the courtroom brought justice, it could not undo the heartbreak. The toddler's family grieved profoundly, and the neighborhood carried the memory of the tragedy for years to come. Though the incident ended in sorrow, it also left a lasting lesson. The community learned to pay closer attention, to question assumptions, and to protect the most vulnerable. What began as a single, seemingly simple decision had rippled outward, transforming lives and serving as a stark reminder of how quickly routine moments can turn into devastating tragedies. The story became part of a larger conversation about responsibility, awareness, and the fragile nature of life itself.